Known for its rich history and unique culture, Portland, Oregon emerged from its roots as a shipping hub for beaver pelts and lumber to become a symbol of innovation and progress. Today, however, this city finds itself grappling with complex and pressing issues that have drastically changed its landscape and the lives of its residents. From a thriving urban hub to a place grappling with social unrest, spiraling homelessness, and safety concerns, Portland is facing a crisis that questions its future. In this video, we will explore this crucial question. How does a city like Portland go from being a cultural and economic beacon to a place seen as unsafe and uninviting? But before we move forward, click that like and subscribe button and hit the notification bell to stay updated with our latest videos. This channel will keep you updated on the most intriguing videos on economic topics around the world. Like many urban centers globally, the COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to Portland. Amid the global health crisis, urban centers were grappling with significant issues, from economic disruptions to an exodus of residents to suburban areas. But for Portland, these problems were underscored by the city's ongoing issues, including high housing costs, homelessness, and poor community leadership. Before the pandemic, Portland was a thriving city, but these existing problems created a precarious situation that was only made worse when COVID-19 hit. As the health crisis escalated, so did the city's struggles. Numerous businesses, restaurants, and tourist attractions were forced to shut, amplifying the sense of desolation and accelerating the city's downwards trajectory. As unemployment rates soared nationwide due to the pandemic, Portland was particularly hit hard, leading to an escalation in the city's homelessness crisis. A Columbia University study warned that the financial hardships wrought by the pandemic could result in a 40 to 45% rise in homelessness nationwide, a projection that rang particularly true for Portland, where homelessness was already a significant issue. Despite the city's best efforts to combat the issue, officials and service providers were overwhelmed. The eviction moratorium and protections put in place for households were simply not enough to keep the crisis at bay. What we see unfolding in Portland is a cautionary tale of how a combination of poor leadership, socio-economic challenges, and an unprecedented global crisis can precipitate the downfall of a city. In our upcoming segments, we will go deeper into this narrative, examining how these factors combined to push Portland into its current state, and discuss what potential futures may lie ahead for this struggling city. The problems plaguing Portland aren't limited to economic and housing issues. The city, known for its progressiveness and activism, became a crucible for civil rights protests following the murder of George Floyd. The summer of 2020 sparked nationwide demonstrations calling for justice and equality. Portland, with its deeply rooted activist culture, was no exception. As the protests in Portland continued, a small core of street activists began to establish a persistent presence. Some of these individuals, many of whom identify as anarchists, have engaged in activities ranging from peaceful protests to acts of destruction and violence. Such actions have led to a debate about the nature of these demonstrations and the impact they're having on the city. As weeks turned into months, episodes of vandalism, arson, and clashes with law enforcement became increasingly common, leading to significant physical damage to the city. The sustained unrest and visible damage created a palpable tension, prompting residents to question their safety. Many businesses, already grappling with the economic fallout of the pandemic, faced additional financial burdens due to property damage. For some, it was the last straw, pushing them to close permanently or relocate. The handling of these protests and the actions of law enforcement in response to them have come under scrutiny. The city attempted to defund the police, shifting some responsibilities to non-police entities to de-escalate confrontations, especially those involving the homeless population. However, this approach was met with controversy as the city decided to mostly defund this new policing alternative just as it was about to be expanded into more neighborhoods. This action further fueled the debate about the city's handling of the unrest. And it wasn't just businesses that were affected. The daily lives of Portland's residents were disrupted too. Amidst the chaos, the city's sense of community began to erode, replaced by fear and uncertainty. The escalating violence and vandalism led to a heightened sense of insecurity among residents. This climate of unease prompted some residents to leave, further exacerbating the city's decline. While the push for social justice and reform is critical and justifiable, the period of sustained unrest in Portland highlighted a complex web of issues at play. Beyond the protests, Portland has seen a surge in homelessness, contributing to the overall sense of discontent. Over the last 3 years, the number of unhoused individuals in the metro area has jumped from about 4,000 to at least 6,600. This increase has led to a rise in outdoor camping across the city. The city's approach to the pandemic may have indirectly contributed to the escalation of this crisis. For instance, during the lockdowns, the city centre, which was once bustling with activity, was emptied out. This created spaces that were soon occupied by the homeless, leading to the establishment of more outdoor camps. However, there are glimmers of hope. In the 2023 point-in-time homeless count, all 3 counties in the Portland region reported a drop in chronic homelessness, indicating that the region is making some progress in addressing the issue. Despite this, the problem remains critical, as thousands still remain without permanent housing. But what impact does this crisis have on the city and its residents? One significant effect has been a change in the perception and reality of safety and cleanliness in the city. Residents report that they feel unsafe and abandoned due to rising crime rates and blatant drug use in their neighborhoods. The presence of outdoor camps and associated public health concerns have further eroded the sense of security and cleanliness. In a city known for its liberal ideologies, these challenges are testing Portland's progressive strain. The city has been divided over the best course of action to address the homelessness crisis. On the one side, there are calls for more stringent law enforcement and cleanups, while on the other, there are demands for increased funding for social services and a more compassionate approach to the homeless. As Portland grapples with its homelessness crisis, the city faces a critical question. How can it uphold its values of compassion and progressiveness while ensuring the safety and well-being of all its residents? Recent poll results from the Oregonian Oregon Live indicate that residents across the metro area perceive downtown Portland as dirty, unsafe, and uninviting. Words like destroyed, trashed, riots, and sad were frequently used to describe the city's core. But why is this perception of the city important? Because it could potentially derail Portland's recovery from the pandemic-induced recession. Now, a recession, for those unfamiliar, is a significant decline in economic activity that lasts for more than a few months, typically characterized as a drop in GDP, real income, employment, and more. But how has this recession manifested in downtown Portland? It's been hit hard. In fact, a study showed that activity in the area is less than half of what it was in 2019. Even more troubling, activity has declined since last fall, ranking Portland near the bottom of 62 downtowns across the country. Only San Francisco and Cleveland are fared worse. So could Portland really die as a city? Or could it potentially recover and rejuvenate? The situation in Portland is indeed worrying. According to the US Census estimates, Oregon's population is shrinking for the first time in decades, and it's losing residents at the 6th fastest rate in the nation. This trend paints a bleak picture of Portland's future. But what are the potential long-term effects of these issues? History provides several examples of cities in decline, from Detroit's downfall due to its reliance on a single industry to the socio-economic struggles faced by cities like Baltimore. These urban centers saw their tax base shrink, public services decline, and an overall decrease in the quality of life. This sets in motion a vicious cycle, where those who can afford to leave do so, further exacerbating the decline. For Portland, these historical examples serve as stark warnings. A declining population erodes the tax base, which can lead to cutbacks in several services. This in turn makes the city less attractive to newcomers and businesses, creating a negative feedback loop that can be hard to break. Polling from DHM Research shows that voters are far less happy with Portland's trajectory today than at any time in the last 30 years, suggesting a profound lack of faith in the city's future. There's no denying that these trends paint a dark picture of Portland's future. So could Portland really die as a city? Historically, few cities ever die in a literal sense, but they can undergo periods of significant decline and struggle. However, it's equally important to ask, could Portland potentially recover and rejuvenate? Yes, it can, and here's why. Cities are remarkably resilient. Detroit, once a symbol of urban decay, is now a city in revival, with a burgeoning tech sector and a renewed sense of hope. But for Portland to recover, it must confront its issues head-on and take transformative steps to address its homelessness problem, crime rates, and economic downturn. There's also hope in the active and engaged citizens of Portland. Despite the challenges, activists like hip-hop artist Mick Crenshaw and Demetria Hester remained dedicated to bringing out change. And Portland's culture of protest and citizen activism could indeed be the catalyst needed for this change. So what's the final takeaway? Portland is certainly at a crossroads. The path it takes will be determined by the collective actions of its policy makers, its businesses, and most importantly, its citizens. Remember, this is a conversation. We want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on these issues? Do you see other potential solutions or opportunities that we didn't cover? Please leave your comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.